Hello agents, in this video we're going to have a look at Title Update 6. It's currently live on the PTS. I had access to this, so I played a bit of it today. I'm going to show you some clips. There's one currently on screen now, and we're going to talk about some of the changes. I also have the initial patch notes to hand, so we're going to go through them. If you do like this video, please do hit like, and if you want to see more video content from myself, hit subscribe. I just want to make you aware of our community as well. If you love the Division 2, we're a multi-platform community. I'm sure you'll love it there. It's at the top of the video description, so come and check us out. So first things first, like I said, I'm going to show you some bits and bobs from the PTS, especially the stuff that I like, and I'm going to read through the initial patch notes. Now, I just need to make it very clear that these initial patch notes will change, because the whole point of the PTS is feedback. So we're currently doing the PTS. It is staged. There is a new exotic coming. I'm going to cover that. I think it's on the 26th of September they're going to put that into the PTS, but right now there's nothing there. But yeah, just so you're aware, there is a new exotic coming as well. But yeah, this is for us to give feedback, for them to make sure they've got it right before it's out in October. I'm sure a lot will change, and as I put in the title, the Eagle Bearer at this point in time is getting nerfed by 15% damage, so it's going to have 15% lowered. But we'll read through them in a moment. The first thing I want to go through is what's on screen now, and that's the targeted loot. I really like how this works. I've been looking around the map for the first 5 to 10 minutes this morning, just having a look at how it works. You see I'm on the raid now. There's no targeting loot for the raid. That's all raid only loot. But if you go to any given area on the map, it'll tell you on the right hand side. So like say you're in the Federal Triangle, it'll tell you what loot is likely to drop there. But then if you hover over a mission on the left hand side, it'll tell you what is likely to drop in the mission. Also, I'm quite new to the Division 2 on PC, so I've not unlocked the Dark Zones yet. They're locked for me, but off recording I did unlock it, and that also has targeted loot. So once you do unlock the DZ East, say, if you hover over DZ East, it will say what loot is likely to drop in there also. We're going to have a look at Space Administration now in this video. You can see that body armor has a high chance of dropping there on the left. I'm going to start this mission, and we're going to see how much body armor actually drops and see how it works at this moment in time with the balancing. So on screen now, you can see I'm well prepped for this. I've only got the gear pieces on me that I need for the build I'm using. So we'll be able to see clearly what items I get at the end of this mission, and the frequency in which it dropped me chest pieces, which is what is said this mission's going to be targeted towards. What I noticed is that when targeted loot is dropped, it highlights it for you. You'll notice on screen now, as I just look up the stairs to my left there, you'll notice as I get closer, that the gold square's bigger. And it's got the chest icon. It tells me from a distance that a targeted piece has dropped. It's gear score 500 as well. I'm not sure if all targeted loot drops at 500. We'll have a look at the end. I forgot from when I just recorded. But yeah, it stands out, and that's my first piece on this mission, and it was at this stage. It didn't take long for my second piece to drop, so I got this one from that enemy drop. I was having a quick look at it on screen, but that weapons cache you can just see behind there, that drops me a second one. We're going to open it now. I say it's a weapons cache. We dropped some gear. It dropped me a weapon and a gear piece, so I'm just going to stand back from it. Again, you'll see that it goes big to tell me that that chest piece is targeted loot, and that's what the targeted loot is on this mission, and it's another 500 chest piece. So at the minute, if I am looking for chest pieces, I've got 2 already on this mission right next to each other. A few more chest pieces did drop on the way to the end of the mission. We'll have a look at how many in a moment. But one thing I wanted to show and check for myself was, would the boss drop this targeted loot? So the boss is just coming out on Space Administration HQ now, and I'm going to kill him. I'm going to see how many targeted loot he drops. He actually dropped me 2 chest pieces. I'm just going to back out a bit so you can see that it was targeted loot. There you go, chest pieces there. So he dropped 2. I don't know whether like the boss of each mission will be a guaranteed targeted loot drop, but I think it'd be cool if it was the case. So yeah, we're going to have a look at how many pieces I got in that mission. So at the start of the mission, I had 1 chest piece. I've now got 9, so that means 8 dropped during that. That's a lot, I think. I was solo, it was on hard. Imagine a team of 4 on challenging and the amount that would have dropped. Obviously, they'll probably rebalance this a little bit, but it does show that the system works. The mission was meant to give out chest pieces, and it did give them out. It gave a lot of them out as well, to be fair. And they had some alright rolls on them too. I just want to have a look at a few more things with you before we move on to the patch notes. So the recalibration station first, it's got a new layout. As you can see, when you go in, you get to select what part you want to use, whether it's gear piece or gun, etc. And then it looks like this. What I love about this now is that it takes things straight from your stash as well. You don't need to be going into your stash to pull pieces out. Bring it up, say which attribute or talent you want to take off, and then it tells you what you can roll on and how many. You can see Surge there, there's 2 available pieces, and insulated at the top there's 1. And when I go into that, those 2 masks are actually in my stash. So these 2 here with Douglas and Hardin and Providence Defense, I don't have them on me, they're in my stash, so it's picking it up from there, which I think's really cool. So that's the new interface for the recalibration station. I think it's making it a bit more streamlined, much easier to use. Some changes as well, which I will mention now, is that you can roll different color attributes, so quickly look at that. It won't work on this piece, I'll go to another now, but if I want to change a defensive to a utility, I can do that. If I want to change an offensive to a defensive, I can do that. So I'm just going to check that on screen now. We'll check with this backpack. If I go into the badge tough and go on my armor, it will allow me to throw a utility attribute on there, and there you go. So I've got 1 piece there of a skill power that I can roll over to it. So that's there too. That was discussed on State of the Game last week. So just moving over to the crafting station as we're here, I noticed that you've now got all of these blueprints that are locked, so it kind of tells you what blueprints you can go out and find. They weren't like that before. If you scroll right down to the bottom, you have all your exotics as well. So that's just a nice little change there. Other than that, there's no major changes. One last thing I want to show you before I go into the patch notes is your mods and how they're now organised. They used to just be in one long list and it was very annoying. They're now split in between your skill mods, your offensive, defensive and utility mods. Much better organisation. And one thing to mention, which I don't think I've mentioned yet in this video, is that your stash is also getting updated to 300. That hasn't seemed to happen so far in this PTS. I'm still on 150. But yeah, that's also happening. I'm now going to move on and we're going to talk through the patch notes. And again, I just want to say that this is the first version of the patch notes for PTS Title Update 6. These are subject to change. We're able to give feedback on this patch, and I'm sure they'll make changes accordingly. So going straight into it, I'm going to talk about some gameplay changes. I'm not going to talk through all of them. I'm certainly not going to touch on the bug fixes. There's loads. So if you want to read these for yourself, I'll link it in the video description. Go check out the link. So PvP, I haven't really touched much on this so far. They're going to talk about this in State of the Game on Thursday, I believe, but there is some PvP changes, and let's go through them. So the Dark Zone gear normalization, player stats will no longer be normalized, and agents will receive their full recalibration bonuses at the end of the game. I think that's absolutely huge. Players below gear score 500 will still receive stat boosts to allow an easier entry into the Dark Zone, and talents continue to have PvE and PvP versions. The UI will now automatically change the talent text inside and outside normalized PvP, and they were also working on displaying all PvP modifiers. And a developer note on these patch notes says, we heard player feedback that normalization can be too punishing, especially when you're trying to min-max your agent as much as possible, just to learn that when entering a Dark Zone the effort was not worth it. So they've listened to your feedback, they've made changes there, and like I said, I think that's huge. Supply drops inside the Dark Zone are changing. They've added more variety of types and locations of supply drops. Supply drops can now drop in inactive landmarks. These encounters can have multiple bosses or faction fights, and supply drops will occasionally drop in the occupied Dark Zone, and Black Tusks will make sure to guard the precious drop. There's updated Thieves' Den vendor. So the Thieves' Den vendor has now set up a proper store and accepts DZ resources. The Thieves' Den vendor stock will rotate regularly. We'll have more information on the stock rotation at a later point, they say. And they've added an indicator on the world map which displays the specific Dark Zone in which the Thieves' Den vendor is located. At endgame, the Thieves' Den vendor will move between 2 non-occupied DZs. Normal vendors outside each Dark Zone's main gate now accepts DZ resources with reworked stocks. Dark Zone matchmaking. They say we've made changes to matchmaking for dark zones, which should ensure higher populations in all zones. And just a developer note again, they say in the past, one of our biggest goals of the DZ was for it to always feel like a fully seamless experience with the open world. This led players, depending on which server they were assigned to, going into empty DZ phases. In episode 2, we'll make an effort to place you into a server that will help ensure you're playing in a full zone. The server transfer can happen when players first walk into a DZ checkpoint. General changes: dark zone extractions now have more chance to be ambushed by NPCs, and hacking a dark zone terminal will temporarily highlight DZ resources around you. There's some changes to conflict as well. They've added new sound effects for the countdown in conflict. There's end of match rewards. Players will now always earn a reward for playing a match. Additional rewards will be given for ranking up and winning. They've added new loading screens. They've added new match start sequence, updated boot signs and feedback. They've updated victory loss presentation, added new music for the winning team. They've reworked end of round screen, will emphasize on each earned reward, added PvP projects in conflict, so daily DZ projects now rotate between a conflict project and a DZ project. They've added visibility of the area of effect range of skills, only shows when players are in the affected area. I'm just going to move on from the dark zone now and go, we've already discussed loot targeting. We've already shown you how that works as well as I played through it. We've discussed the recalibration. I'm just going to read through that though. We have made several changes to recalibration for this update. New recalibration interface. Players are now able to recalibrate stat types over each other. For example, offensive red attributes over defensive blue attributes. This still only applies to stats on gear pieces of the same category. It is now possible to recalibrate items that are located in the stash, as we discussed. I didn't have any brand sets to show you, but I do want to discuss this. Brand sets now have an item available on every slot: mask, backpack, vest, gloves, holster and knee pads. The only exception to this is the 511 brand, as the real life version doesn't cover all slots, and we're happy to stick with that. So you've probably seen that in the loot I've shown you before, with a few chest pieces that weren't as chest pieces before title update 6. I think like the Douglas and Hardener, if you could get that as a chest, but you can now. You can get it anywhere. Crafting: enemies will no longer drop crafting materials that the player is currently capped out on. I think that's awesome. Deconstructing gear and weapons have a chance to provide polycarbonate. The chance to gain extra materials from deconstructing stays the same. Lowered crafting costs when crafting fewer grey and brand materials will now be required. At gear score 500, base materials required are now 60, down from 85. At gear score 500, brand materials required are now 5, down from 8. Enemies will now drop higher amounts of crafting materials. Green materials up to 12 from 6, blue materials up to 9 from 4, and named enemies drop larger quantities than before. Crafting material containers will now drop 1 green and 1 blue material instead of just one of either. Blueprints that haven't been acquired yet will now be visible in the crafting bench interface, with hints on how to acquire them. That's what I was showing you a few moments ago. Added a notification to the crafting interface that increases clarity when an upgrade to the crafting bench is available. The crafting vendor Ainyara now sells a perk that allows a player to share materials between all the characters. Again, I think this is brilliant. It gives you the option. I mentioned this in my video the other day after state of the game. I like that it gives you the option to either treat each character new or share everything. It's better than being forced. They've increased perks for upgrading the material inventory size. So base material cap with all perks unlocked now 2,000 up from 600, and green and blue materials cap with all perks unlocked now 1,500 up from 400. Increased material caps for rare materials: purple cap now 300 up from 100, orange cap now 80 up from 50, hardwired base materials cap now 50 up from 30, and hardwired components cap now 10 up from 5. And as we mentioned earlier, the stash has been increased by 150, making your stash size 300. Here's some balancing changes. So you've got some changes to brand sets. The Alp Summit set, the 2-piece set bonus is now 10% skill power, up from 5%. China Light Industries, the 3-piece set bonus is now plus 20% skill haste, down from 30%. Petrov Defense Group, the 3-piece set bonus is 20% skill haste, down from 30%. NPCs have had a change. They've been rebalanced on hard, challenging, heroic difficulty. Not too sure whether that's for the better or not. Black Tusk Warhounds and mini tanks will now feature red blinking lights before they perform their on-death
explosion. There's a bit more about the dogs there and what they do. I'm going to skip through all that. You can have a read through it yourself. I want to get down to the skills. So there's been some changes with skills. Seeker Mines, the ones that mentioned here. You've got increased damage of explosive Seeker Mine by 20%, and it now applies bleed status effect. You have increased damage of cluster Seeker Mines by 30%, but also increased cooldown of cluster Seeker Mines from 40 seconds to 60 seconds. They lowered the quantity of cluster Seeker Mines from 4 to 3 as well, and they've increased the cooldown of Blind of Firefly from 60 seconds to 90 seconds. There's some developer notes there, and they explain the reasoning behind this. They are quite happy with the feedback they've had on the skills, but they do feel they may be a little bit OP, hence why the small changes. There's more information on a few more skills there, but the most important part now, which I think a lot of people have been mentioning, is the Eagle Bearer. In the patch notes, they say they've lowered the Eagle Bearer damage by 15%. This has been asked, a lot of people have been asking for this nerf, but I know a lot of people have also been against it. So do let me know what you think about that in comments, guys. I'm not too sure what to think about it right now. I haven't used it much in PvP, but I think that's where the reason is behind it. I've heard the Eagle Bearer in PvP is far too OP. Maybe that should have been maybe that should be a change where PvE they don't make a change, PvP they do. I don't know. Feedback to them, they may change it. Talents, there's some new talents now. There's Spark, so damaging enemies with skills or grenades grant 15% weapon damage for 15 seconds. Spark can be found on backpack items. You're going to have Vigilance, which is gain 25% weapon damage. Receiving damage disables the buff for 5 seconds. Vigilance can be found on chest items. And Concussion, headshots grant 20% headshot damage for 2 seconds. 5 seconds with marksman rifles. Concussion can be found on mask items. There's some talent changes. There's been a nerf to On the Ropes. Weapon damage is increased by 15%, down from 25%, while all skills are on cooldown. Critical buff, 15% up from 5% critical hit damage on that. Mad Bomber, there's been a buff. It's removed attributes requirements. Riot Foam grenade radius is now correctly modified. Unstoppable Force has been nerfed. Killing an enemy grants now 1%, down from 2% weapon damage for every 20,000 armor, which is down from 25,000. Creeping Death has a buff, so status effects spread to the nearest enemy within 25 meters, up from 10 meters, can occur every 5 seconds, down from 15 seconds. Trauma has a new function. PvE, once every 30 seconds, an enemy hit with a headshot is blinded for 5 seconds. In PvP, once every 40 seconds, an enemy hit with a headshot is blinded for 2 seconds. Centered has had a buff. Headshot kills grant status effect immunity for 30 seconds, which is up from 10. Dialed In has a new function. While aiming, gain 15% weapon stability. Spot has been nerfed. It's now plus 15%. It was 20% weapon damage to pulsed enemies. Wicked has a new functionality. Whenever you apply a status effect, gain 15% weapon damage for 20 seconds. Compensated has been nerfed. Weapon damage is increased by 10% rather than 15%, which it was before when your critical hit chance is below 20%. And it now correctly removes the buff if critical hit chances increase when the buff is active. There's more. You check the link in the description. We could go on for a while. There's some on the weapons as well. A lot of changes there. Just scanning through them now, there's not much more. Ranger has had an adjustment so it's remove attribute requirements for Ranger. Nothing much there, to be fair. There's been loads of user interface changes which you can have a look at, and then there's bug fixes, and there's a ton of bug fixes that you can have a read through. But that's everything on my part that I want to discuss in this video today. Been going on for nearly 20 minutes now. Again, if you've enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Let me know in the comments what you think as well. Let's get some conversation going. Yeah, I'll be back on the 26th, I think it is, when they're gonna put the exotic in the PTS, so I'll have a look at that and how you get it maybe, and I might release a video then. But until then, thanks for watching, guys, and peace out.